Thank you very much, Angela and Dr. Mendelson. I want to add my welcome to this workshop and gratitude to the colleagues who've helped to organize it and support it, especially to co-chair and to Cheryl Nass and her staff from the Academy. Organizing these workshops is really hard work, and they make it look very easy. I also want to exercise the co-chair's prerogative to make a few comments from my perspective as a clinical trialist about the motivations and intent for the discussion to take place in the next couple of days. My comments, although from a perspective of a trialist, can certainly be related to human subjects research more broadly. Clinical trials are in an unquiet state. While there has been calm evolution of the science over the last 40 years, there have also been some crises or their equivalent that are not conducive to a thoughtful change. Most importantly, though, the milieu surrounding clinical trials compared to their goals and capabilities appear to have changed divergently in ways that make me wonder aloud if we are well positioned for the needs of the next 40 years. Changes during the present epoch of human subjects research, say using Belmont as a landmark, include several. A virtual explosion of methodology and application of trials in response to legitimate scientific needs, a strong empiricism via required representation, subgroup analyses, and suspicion of convenience samples. I might say a hypertrophic concern over privacy, the rise of genomic science to work against empiricism with increasing detail, granularity, and speed, targeted therapies and their finer application in the form of precision medicine, ethics review at a distance and for hire, powerful biobanking coupled to genomics, stronger safety and efficacy regulation, greater empowerment and involvement of survivors and other advocates in the research process, strong pressures on methodologic designs, sometimes even to solve problems that are not design related, costs of research, and the rise of multi-center cancer trials and the need for data sharing. What has not changed in this current epoch are things like the principles articulated in Belmont, the fundamental process of informed consent, investigator responsibilities, the basic IRB process and its risk-benefit calculus, societal need for high-quality evidence, the paradoxical and dichotomous public perception of clinical trials and medical research in general as either benefit, risk, or right, whichever seems to be worse in the circumstance. Principles of drug regulation and natural law that requires sizable numbers of research subjects to produce strong evidence, and the necessity for strong evidence on which to base therapeutic decisions. So the static and dynamic effects pressure research with increasing cost, logistical complexity, restrictions on data, declining enrollment, and sometimes poor scientific compromises. My hope is that this workshop will provoke an organized discussion of human subjects research on a larger scale, the goal of which might be to update societal values that support research. Such a discussion should keep clearly in mind the challenges of disease and therapeutics for the next 40 years. For example, in the coming decades, we'll see an older population with a higher incidence of cancer, a near doubling of cancer incidence worldwide, and many other diseases of age, notably Alzheimer's disease. Prevention of these conditions is apparently much more difficult than successes with cardiovascular disease might suggest. Both diseases, cancer and especially Alzheimer's disease, destroy one of the most cherished attributes of life, individual autonomy. It underpins or even dominates our view of research ethics as well. In cancer, it seems that the challenge will not be in the proposal and design of new therapeutics, but rather in the evaluation, combination, and personalization of treatment. To all of you, I would ask if human research is well equipped going forward to cope with these types of challenges. Today, we hear so much about minimally invasive surgery and how much can be done at a distance and through a small incision. It's expensive and time-consuming, but does it yield better outcomes? Are we also in the era of minimally invasive human subjects research? Can reliable therapeutic comparisons be made passively from bills or EMRs? Are we so impressed with computing power that we think it can substitute for experimental design? Or must we continue our current strong tradition of designed experimental research in humans with cancer? To government officials and ethicists, I would ask, what did the I in IRB actually stand for? And is it okay that locality is no longer a dominant principle of ethics review? It's common and possible now to satisfy IRB requirements in a week or two at a distance, whereas most academic medical centers need months. Should there be a Dartmouth Atlas of IRB review process so we can ask what's going on? To lawyers and IRBs and potential study participants, how will we recraft and capture informed consent to be just that, rather than a disclaimer and a liability shield? To advocates, I've heard you say, listen to what happened to us, let us help design more palatable research studies, and we can be a voice for increased funding. But why not more attention to opportunity and consequence at a time of decreased funding? Why not attention to the societal foundations and value of biomedical research so that it plays a future role by design rather than by crisis? Is there an obligation to participate in minimal risk research, such as biobanking? Are contemporary privacy restrictions yielding the right mix of positive and negative effects? Is politics aligned with public needs and wishes? And if not, why not? To those presiding over the decline in the number of cancer trial participants, seemingly destined to go from a peak of about 29,000 to 17,000 or so in the coming years, while the number of cancers increases as a consequence of genomically deterministic subsets, how will we test the army of new agents and combinations that we have all tried so hard for the last 10 to 15 years to create? To drug developers and regulators, how will we explore the large number of potentially useful targeted agents and their combinations in the present circumstance of fewer cancer trials, economic disincentives, and regulation? All of my questions have roots in the discussion of today and tomorrow. To all, I ask if it is time to reintegrate the perspectives implied in this workshop into a plan to solve the problems of the next 40 years. As cancer incidence increases in our aging population, are we satisfied that our attitudes and values as operationalized in the research ethics process are doing enough to solve the problems? So I want to thank you then for being here. I look forward to the discussion this morning and all day and tomorrow. And I'll begin by asking Holly Taylor to step forward and give our first talk on the current landscape in human subjects protections. Holly.